Hey everyone, welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host Charles Kiriakou. So in this episode today, I've just finished up the episode with Debbie. There is so much value in this episode. So if you've got ADHD or you don't have ADHD and you're just mindful of your energy levels, which I know as a recruiter, I always used to struggle dealing with my energy levels, and we talked so much about something that I don't think many people talk about, which is actually truly understanding your genetics, understanding your DNA, and understanding your bloods. And just as I was speaking to Debbie as she was leaving, I was like, damn, I'm gonna go and get my bloods checked to really see, like, is what I'm supplementing the right things? Like, you know, is what I'm doing the right things that I need to be doing for who I am? So some really interesting takeaways. Do forgive me, I'm not the most scientific person in the world, so there's a few things that must have gone over my head. So as I edit this, I'm going to be whacking so many things into ChatGPT so that I can actually understand some of this stuff. So forgive me if I didn't question too much into the scientific stuff, but hopefully I did a good enough job. But anyway, that's enough from me. Just lastly, thank you very much for people that are tuning back into the podcast. And if this is the first time that you are tuning in, welcome, and just make sure that you follow the show, make sure you subscribe. We release episodes every single Tuesday morning, and we have done so for 90 Tuesdays in a row. So again, enough from me. Let's get into this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Kiriakou. Today, I have a very unique episode for you, one that I'm particularly excited about. I'm joined by Debbie Bosworth, who is a strategic genomist, and I practiced that word a dozen times before we clicked record. Basically, this episode, if you have ADHD, this is going to be a double good episode for you, and I'm buzzing because I'm going to learn so much about it. If you don't have ADHD, then, and you work in recruitment, you know your energy levels go up and down, and it's difficult to manage, right? So Debbie's going to talk a lot about the scientific things behind that, your genetics, your DNA, and how to manage your energy levels best. But again, if you do have ADHD, this is going to be such an eye-opener. And yeah, like I said, I'm buzzing to get into this one. But before we do get into the topics and have this conversation, Debbie, please tell people who may or may not know you a little bit about you, your backstory, and what you currently do now.
Okay, so I'm Debbie Bosworth. I have a history of 30 years in healthcare, a nurse, medical sales for Johnson & Johnson, later in my career, as I had my children, surgical assistant in theatres, and I just saw patients, clients coming back sicker, more medicated, not getting well, the same patients coming through time and time again. And as my career progressed, and I had my children, I ended up a single mom navigating single motherhood, a big career, and ended up a patient of the NHS myself. Followed the rules, had my bloods done. You know, I was having hives, my skin was blistering. I felt what I thought was probably a bit of a breakdown, and nobody could help me. I followed the rules, I had all the blood tests, and I just knew that there was more, that I was healable, that I wasn't broken, that there was something more to it. Hence why then I set up Ideal Edge. I was my biggest challenge. If I could sort out what later became very apparent for me, the ADHD traits behind my biology, the crippling symptoms my body was showing physically, with the hives, with the skin breakdowns, with the rashes, and then all of that culminating in hitting my head and my mental health. It wasn't that I had a mental health disorder, it was all underpinned by my biological bottlenecks. And I had to sort that out, and there was no system that could do it. So I had to put a system together, hence why Ideal Edge was born, and why now I work with specifically founders, a lot of recruiters, a lot of CEOs, a lot of leaders who have been down the NHS route, who just aren't getting the answers, who just say to me, there's something more, and I know there is, and that's where they usually land on my door. And we look at their genetics and their bloods through a very, very different lens. What's going on? Where are your energy levels? A three-pronged system of just helping them understand themselves and how they work.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So what did it turn out to be then? Like, what happened to you?
Okay, so I had a full burnout.
I thought it sounded like it.
Full burnout. So absolute full burnout. So I was already on antidepressants, HRT, Then I started taking antihistamines to manage just all the things that we're taught in nursing and in the NHS to manage symptoms.
So they didn't actually deal with the fact that it's burnout. It's just you have rashes, you have depression. Yeah, okay,
absolutely. Until I was hospitalised, just because my body and my system began to shut down.
Right. Okay.
My immune system crashed. I just pushed myself. My body was fighting. My body was fighting the HRT. It was fighting the antidepressants. It was fighting the antihistamines. And now I understand why. Understanding my genetic profiling, looking back at my lifestyle, looking back at the big role I'd taken on, navigating single motherhood, still running a business, as well as all of the other things I look back at now, and what I was putting in my body, how much coffee I was drinking, what I was eating, you know, the way I was exercising, all of that, looking through a biological DNA blood lens, understandable why my body just said enough.
Makes sense.
So I had to build myself back from the biggest burnout hole. And I had to build a process to get me back on track. And for me, it had to be trackable, because if I was going to go against medical advice, bearing in mind for 30 years I had been in medicine, I needed a trackable tool to know that what I was doing worked for me.
Yeah.
So I just built the tools to Ideal Edge and I tracked it. And this is the same system I use with all high performers, all CEOs, leaders and recruiters now, to absolutely map out a process that I know works once we have the data. I needed to know my data.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I'm excited to go into it because I'm trying to think who it was I spoke to on the phone earlier, and we were talking about burnout actually. And I said that it's a very typical thing that happens in ADHD, is where you get hyper-fixated on something brand new and shiny, and you're like, oh, this is a really, really fun thing. And then you hyper-focus on something for 4 hours, then you're like, right, on to the next, and you forget to eat, and then, I haven't been to the gym yet. And then you go to the gym, you're like, oh, I feel like I could do more. I just put 2 plates on either side. And like, you don't realise that, like, right now you feel like you're a Superman, but the next few days your body's just going to absolutely crash. And it's happened to me like twice this year, and to the point where I don't know if you can see, I've got like bald patches on my beard.
It's testosterone levels.
Testosterone levels?
Yeah.
What, like dropping?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I researched it, and I spoke to a couple of my friends who have a similar thing, and the oval patches on the beard, so I have a couple there and one here, something called alopecia something or the other, where it's basically due to mass amounts of stress, the hair follicles fight themselves. And one of the things that it said on there is that if you notice they grow back blonde, where you can see there's like faint hairs there on the little bald patch. That's why I've got a moustache now, by the way, because I was like, it's annoying. But that happened when I went through serious stress at the start of the year. As soon as I was going through, like, and baby wasn't sleeping, she's now sleeping, thank God. Money was a bit crap, you know, clients been dicking me around, trying to juggle 2 businesses and the podcast, all the rest of it. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating right, I wasn't exercising consistently, and just completely crashed. And as a typical bloke, what do men typically do? Bottle it up, push it aside, right, I'm the man of the house, I'm going to just crack on. To the point where I sat down with my wife and was like, I need help. I really need help. And then I think that's when I noticed that. And I was like, oh, researched it. And I was like, and I spoke to my friend Michelle as a health coach, and she was like, you do this all the time. So I'm excited to kind of go into like some of your frameworks and things like that around burnout. But yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's tough, isn't it?
But I think without it, Ideal Edge would never have been born, and I wouldn't have been able to help the hundreds of founders that I've helped, because there really is nothing else out there, really. Especially for leaders. We're high performers. This isn't about workload. This is about energy. This is about managing yourself. This isn't a personality flaw. This is behaviors done over and over and over to get a dopamine hit, because we're dopamine seekers. This is all about dopamine regulation. This is all about dopamine clearance, adrenaline clearance. And it comes from your core genetics. It comes from a methylation panel. This isn't a personality flaw. This is, and I'm sure you'll notice if you look at your parents or you look at your siblings, it runs through families. Because it's a genetic profiling. It comes from 3 genetic, what we call mutations. It comes from a methylation panel. It comes from a detoxification panel. You can't methylate. You can't translate and you can't clear for a really good reason. So we need to just work with that just to be able to manage ourselves better. And with ADHD, we do hyperfocus. So I just make sure that now I hyperfocus on the right things. I don't, I know I can hyperfocus, and hyperfocus is good sometimes as long as we don't compromise on our self-care and our regulation. And energy crashes come from low blood sugars.
Right. Okay.
We need to be eating regularly.
Yeah.
Coffee's a big thing in recruiters. Not eating regularly is a big thing
or eating too much, and too much of the worst stuff.
Right, usually late on in an evening when you've gone all day without food, and it's just managing yourself and managing those blood sugar levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning and jumping between several different tools, then listen up, because this episode is officially sponsored by SourceWhale. SourceWhale is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. Outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using SourceWhale see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to SourceWhale, go to sourcewhale.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode. So there was something that you said on the phone a couple of days ago, that ADHD, I don't know whether this is factual or whatever it is, you mentioned something around that it comes from some form of trauma when you're young.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to you, I was racking my brains and thinking, was I always like this in reception primary school? And I was like, I do remember my teacher, because we didn't have like proper homework in primary school, right? But there were times when my mum would sit down with a teacher, I remember it very vividly, and they talked about my problem with playing PlayStation instead of doing homework, because from my perspective as a kid, homework was so boring, right? And like, you're in primary school was fun because you're playing games and stuff, but when I had to go home and do my maths homework and stuff, like, no. When I had the SATs, no, I can't be arsed. I'd rather play PlayStation because it's fun and that gives me the dopamine. Obviously, you're a child, you don't really know what that is. My parents didn't really know what that was at the time. When it really started to properly kick in, when I was like getting kicked out of class all the time, was when I was probably about 16. And if I think about what happened when I was 16, I've talked about this on the podcast before, my mum was still going through cancer treatment. So I nearly lost my mum a few times from the age of 10 to 15. Dad left home just before my 16th birthday. Grandmother has a stroke. That was a few years after that. And then from the ages of 15 to 19, that's when my life just completely flipped upside down.
Imploded.
Yeah. But my point to you, and this isn't necessarily me challenging you on like whether it is trauma-based or whatever, it's more of a conversation, right, is that I can't really remember if there was much trauma, so to speak, before, unless there was, and I have to speak to my mum about it. But where I really noticed the ADHD symptoms, etc., really accelerate was during those periods where I would say I had some trauma.
Okay, usually DNA, intrinsic DNA, is impacted by some sort of trauma.
Okay.
If we think about the DNA profile for ADHD, that's come from some sort of trauma, whether that is birth trauma, pregnancy trauma, whether it is ancestral trauma that's been passed down the line.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's come through the family line. Then think about all of that. So that's playing on in the background. So if you have this 3 genetic coding that I talk about a lot with high performers, that gives us vast capabilities to do most of the things that most people don't. With this impact on this dopamine seeking and this poor clearance and all of that, think about what you went through at 16. That's total dysregulation. That's a nervous system in overdrive. When a nervous system goes into overdrive, it perpetuates ADHD symptoms that have been playing on in the background all of the time, that have probably been managed by a really loving family, that have been very, you were probably fed very well, you were managed quite well at school, you probably weren't criticised a great deal, and then you hit a wall psychologically because all of your psychological safety is taken away. That takes you out of decision making, prefrontal cortex, into the fear-based brain, where all of your ADHD symptoms, a dysregulated nervous system, are going to be amplified by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
When you're going through massive stress, your brain, to stay online here, needs massive amounts of methylated folate, D3 and B12.
Yeah, my mum talks about D3 and B12 all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
What happens when you're burning through that and you're dealing with your mum having cancer treatment, you're dealing with all the things you're dealing with, there's no way you'll be eating properly. There's no way you'll be putting yourself first. There's no way you'll be meeting your self-care needs. There's no way you'll even be thinking about where you are. You will be in utter survival in a different part of the brain. You are burning through all of that. And then what you're doing then is you're building cellular debt. Because you're in that part of the brain, you're burning through all of the things you're probably already low on, the B12, the methylfolate, the D3. You're burning through it like nobody's business, because that's what stress does. It burns through it more. As high performers, when we are having to make quick decisions and carry a load, we need that readily available. So what your body does really cleverly to keep you alive and to keep you is it will just take it from everywhere. It will take the B12, it will take the folate, it will take the D3 from everywhere it can. It will deplete all of your cells to keep you alive. That builds debt. Like any debt, it has to be repaid. So then what happens is we then go on later on in life, and as we get into our 40s, with this genetic combination, the MTHFR, the COMT, and the detoxification pathways, all of this just builds nicely in the background. So you're building up cellular debt really nicely. And what happens when most people are heading towards their 30s, towards their late 40s, we're already starting with a little bit of cellular decline. We've already built up some cellular debt because we've been burning through it anyway. Then we've hit a trauma, which we all do when we have kids or teenagers, or death of our parents, just life. Just life. We're already in cellular debt. Then we head into our 40s and the energy crashes come. Then we've added children to it. Then we're not eating properly. We're still behaving like we were in our 20s and wondering why we can't perform like that. That's cellular debt. Burnout is cellular debt, and it has to be repaid, which is when the data really comes in. What are we dealing with? Where are we? Where are our energy levels really? And what changes do we have to make to pay that cellular debt back? Because you don't have a choice. And for me, my breakdown and my burnout was the debt had to be repaid, and it had to be repaid then. I'd gone way over the part of where my cells could cope. That was my body's way of saying, for us to survive, I'm going to shut everything down. And then you had to rebuild from there.
Right, okay. Yes, that's like, when I speak to Michelle about burnout, she talks about like that chronic burnout. There's like stages of burnout, isn't there?
Absolutely.
And she was like, what you need to do, and I've got better at this because there was a time last year, make you laugh and go, you're an idiot. I joined a CrossFit gym up the road, and we did this class where the warm-up was like your body weight on doing deadlifts, but you do like 1 rep, then you do like a load of burpees and pull-ups, then 2, all the way up to like 30. And I hadn't been deadlifting that long. And then by the end of the session, I was like, oh my God, I was absolutely just fucked, right? Plus also running the business and all the rest of it. And it got to the point where the next day, there's DOMS, and then there is I can't move. Yeah. And then my wife came over, and I don't cry. Like, I say I don't. I rarely cry, unless it's like catastrophic. I rarely cry. She found me like crying and shaking, and she's like, what's the matter? I can't move. And I couldn't stand up. And she's like, go and speak to Anko. I've got this massage therapist up the road. And she pressed my back once, and she went, your nervous system is absolutely fucked.
It will be an adrenal point because you pushed your adrenals.
Pushed it way too hard. And when I was telling her about work, just by me talking about it, like this is happening and then this, and then I don't know if that, and then like that. She was like, Charles, you've gone from this is burnout, you've gone to the other side. Yeah. And it took me physically to recover 2 weeks. Yeah. By the end of the 2 weeks, then I didn't have any pain in my hamstrings. And then I spoke to Michelle, who's been on the pod as well. And she was like, what you need to do is like, you need to start spotting the signs before you get to that point.
Way before. You need a plan.
Yes, and you need a bit of a plan. And I'm getting better, but hopefully through this conversation, I'll learn a bit or two. But you talked about the cellular debt, and you talked a lot about the things that kind of go into that. So if I'm a recruiter or a founder and I'm building up that cellular debt, and maybe I'm on the path to burnout, or maybe I'm a burnout, or maybe I've just experienced it in the past, what do I need to do essentially to stop myself from...
You need to be really real about your energy levels. Really, really real about your energy levels. This isn't a mindset thing. This is a biological thing.
Right.
And especially with male recruiters, they're very positive about where they are. And I think being really real about where you really are on your energy levels and scaling back from there. Working out what you need biologically, cellularly, having the clever blood tests, understanding where your homocysteine levels are, understanding where your B12 is, understanding where your folate levels are, understanding where your iron levels are, understanding actually where you are and how far into cellular debt you actually are. So having your cellular data read and having the data in front of you is going to help put a plan together. Just
quickly on that then, sorry to interrupt. I'm assuming that's kind of what you do in your clinic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for someone that's listening to this, because there'll probably be some recruiters, founders listening to this and go, right, okay, how do I actually do that? Obviously, we'll talk about your business towards the end as well, but I've seen things on Instagram, it's like going and get your bloods tested and things like that. Is it as simple as sending your bloods off somewhere, or are you very unique in what you do? Because what you've said there, this is really important, by the way, because I'm now intrigued to go and get my bloods double checked as well. But how easy or difficult is it for someone to simply just go and get their bloods checked?
Okay, so the NHS was built for population level diagnosis. It is not built for prevention. It is built for disease.
Right.
This isn't a standard blood panel. This isn't a standalone go to the GP. There's certain things that the GP will run and they won't. This is looking at your bloods through your DNA lens. Where do you have bottlenecks in your intrinsic DNA? What genetic combinations do you have, and what do your levels need to be? Then what have we got actually going on in your bloods? I always ask for a homocysteine level, especially because I deal a lot with ADHD. The NHS will say anything over 15 is a red flag. From 10, it's hitting the neurons, it's hitting your neurology, it's hitting your biochemistry in your brain. Anything over 7 is a flag for me. Then I know that there's something going on in the methylation panel. It's a typical ADHD trait. I need to open up the methylation panel with methylfolate, if that's what they want, carefully. Where's the B12? Where is all of the macro and micronutrients to help all of that work? So this isn't a simple one test fits all. This is what's in your DNA, what's in your bloods, read through that DNA lens, functional levels. You wouldn't drive a Ferrari and just put bog standard diesel in it if it was a petrol engine.
Yeah.
You would expect it to blow up, or you would expect it to, you've got to know what's in your instruction manual. DNA is your instruction manual. The bloods tell me functionally where you are. It's an oil dip. What's going on? How dirty are you? What have you got going on? Cellularly, the health screen that I run tells me on which system is this hitting, where I move the needle the fastest, because I read it in a green, orange and red. We are in the red zone. I need to take that down right now to get them out of burnout. Then we deal with the next thing. It is nutrition. It is supplementation, and it is lifestyle. Genetics are the loaded gun.
Right, okay.
The environment fires that gun. So it's all about, everything I do with founders, with leaders, is help them understand themselves so that they can understand that what they put in their bodies on a regular basis is going to have this impact on their energy, on their system, on how their brain works, on how their body works.
Yeah.
This isn't a mindset thing.
Yeah.
This is a biological thing,
Yeah.
and this is where the NHS gets it wrong. You go to the GP, they give you 9 minutes.
Yeah.
They have a whole list of medications they could prescribe. With ADHD, for instance, it's an 18-month waiting list. Whether you have a diagnosis, whether you don't, it's straight to medication.
Yeah.
The medication is stimulant, so they're razzing the central nervous system to match the brain, when really the way to manage ADHD symptoms is to slow down the brain to match the body. That can only be done once you have managed adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine.
Yeah.
And the 3 genetic combinations I see in ADHDers is this methylation issue, this clearance issue, and this detoxification issue. It's all compounded.
Yeah.
This means we have sensitivities to gluten a lot of the time because our guts are dysregulated. This means we can't process folic acid, which is in every wheat-based product. It's a toxin to us and we can't clear it. Alcohol is just a killer for us because we can't clear it well, and we don't have enough folate, and alcohol depletes B6, and then it's compounded very often by this, what I call this Comte picture. We don't clear dopamine, so that means we stay on hyper alert, and then we crash.
Yeah.
Well, think about recruitment. Think about the job you guys do. You're chasing the bonuses. You've got the big commission. You get the dopamine hit, and then you have the crash. It's gonna pull in this ADHD, high functioning biology, not a personality type.
Yeah, there is so much to unpack from what you've just said. I think first and foremost, one thing I've taken away from that is that I'm definitely going to try and get my bloods checked out. I've seen so many things, like you mentioned testosterone. I always get these adverts pop up, like get your testosterone tested, and like all those stuff. First and foremost, I think that's a great bit of advice for everyone to just do, just to understand yourself a little bit further, right? 100%.
Know where you are, know your data.
100%.
You wouldn't run a business not on data, and yet we
100%.
never look at our biological data.
100%. And what you were saying as well about like the DNA being the instruction manual, that for me was like, that makes so much sense. The other thing where you were talking about, environment, lifestyle, nutrition. So to give you a good example, I would say the last month and a half, I've been on it with my nutrition. In January, I was starting to go to the gym quite regularly, and then I joined a new gym up the road that's like, I'm not a bodybuilder type person, but it's like a typical kind of bodybuilder. They've got every machine. You go during peak hours and there's 10 squat racks free. Like, it's just giant, right? And it's amazing, and everyone in there is just giant, and I'm like, it just motivates me. And now I go in there and I'm just on it. Like, this is the first time in years where I'm super passionate about, lifting weights, doing my Thai boxing and all the rest of it. But I realised that it doesn't matter how much I train, if I'm not eating well. And then I was looking, I don't track my calories. I always fell out of bed with it, and the Fitbit tracking is crap. So I downloaded MyFitnessPal, just got the free version, and it's so much better. And I was like asking the AI, what do I, it's basically like, make sure you're hitting your carb target when you're training. But your biggest thing is, if you just want to stay at your body weight and just lean down a little bit and become strong, you need to be making sure you hit protein. When I'm looking, Debbie, over the last 6 months or so, I've been pretty consistent. Not really many results because I haven't been tracking my protein. And then I was toying around with foods, and this is where we were talking about DNA and stuff, right? It's my family, my mum's side of the family's from Cyprus, right? I'm a bit of a foodie, right? I love trying new foods and stuff. I have tried and tested, so many different types of foods. And the food that I've noticed that just aligns with me, shock, is a Mediterranean diet. Olive oils, lean chicken, lamb, all those types of things. I go and have a curry, just a korma, not spicy. I'm written off. I might as well have had 2 bottles of wine, right? I said my wife gets annoyed with me sometimes because I've started to be not boring because I season the food to shit, but like lean beef mince, lean chicken, like sweet potatoes, broccoli, and just every day is a different type of seasoning and stuff. And oh my God, my sleep has improved, my concentration has improved, my workouts have improved, all the rest of it. The environment, still working on it. Baby's now sleeping, so it has got a little bit better. But if I put myself back into my shoes as a billing manager, as a recruiter, that's quite difficult when you're working in the city or in an office and you're doing different hours. Maybe the business doesn't have the mindset that actually you need to slow down to speed up or whatever. It's like, just be positive, just keep going, make another call, like that. It's that
You can't
environment.
slow down, and you shouldn't have to slow down. This is the ADHD thing. You shouldn't have to slow down. You just have to understand that to work like a Porsche, to work like a Lamborghini, you have to give it the right fuel. Think about the Mediterranean diet. Think about how pure it is. It is high protein, it is high fiber, and it is high fat, right? The carbohydrates in a Mediterranean diet are complex. They keep and sustain a body going. Think about when you do go for a curry, that's loaded very often with dairy, loaded with inflammatory fats, team that with a naan bread that's got gluten in it, that's loaded with folic acid that's been sprayed with it. Think about what I've been talking about, and you can understand why people go wrong. Let's add a pint of beer to that. Yeah? And we wonder why, as high performers, we're not able to clear it. If you're banging in folic acid, if you're banging in seed oils, if you're banging in no nutritional value and you're already biologically depleted, that is going to have an impact in real time and in the following days. And how many of us running businesses, small children, families can afford to play with our health?
I know, yeah.
Unless you know that coding. Have you got the coding and have you got the enzymes to break down dairy? Have you got the coding and the enzymes to break down gluten? How is your liver working and can you clear it? What amount of folate do you need and in what form? Where are your B12 levels? Where are your D3 levels? Where are your homocysteine levels? Where is your gut health? Because we know it impacts. We know everything about our cars usually. And if we don't, we have a mechanic that sorts it. And as human beings, we're winging it. We wait till something goes wrong and then we go to the doctor and try and get fixed.
Yeah.
Why don't we understand our instruction manual, put the right things in, get the best out of it, and employ somebody to keep us on track?
Yeah, I think, for if I'm listening to this as someone that's working in recruitment still, like, I'm going to go and understand my manual. And I think once you've done that, then you'll be able to understand what to put into your body. Because again, like I said, it was very much a test and trial, and I've kind of, I wouldn't say I've entirely figured it out, but what I'm doing is currently working, so to speak, and then that has a domino effect, doesn't it? Because then you're sleeping better, and and all the rest of it, and then the environment stuff as well. Because what you were mentioning around, it's not necessarily a mindset thing. I've had so many times where I didn't know what burnout was when I was a recruiter, right? And I would get ill all the time, and people would always take the mickey and go like, "Oh my God, you're ill again." And I'm like, why am I ill? Like, what is going on? And I look back and it's like, you're working crazy hard, doing crazy hours, crazy amounts of stress, kind of putting your number against your personality as well. Like
your self-worth.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's a very typical thing in recruitment.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like not billing and costing the business money and all the rest of it. But I don't know many recruitment businesses that have a culture that really understand that. And also, this could be, like, I guess, a bit of a challenge to this, because I have two perspectives on this, right? When I did my mental health first aider course, I did like a whole presentation on like what mental health is, and I shared with everyone my story about mental health, and the recruiters were like, "Oh my God, the global head of L&D like had chronic depression and anxiety, he was suicidal." I was like, "Fucking hell, like, okay, I can actually open up to this person." But then the double-ended sword of that is that if you create a society where it's just like, be really open about mental health and about burnout and stuff, unfortunately you do get a select few people that go, "I'm a bit tired, I'm burnt out, I need the day off. Oh, I'm a bit worried about not hitting target, I'm anxious, I need a day off." And you get some people, and this is why I haven't really posted a lot about mental health recently, because I've seen so many people on LinkedIn, it's like a bit of a virtue now. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm off, but maybe that's just my own perspective. But I feel like some people have almost coerced that whole thing. And now you see, unfortunately, some leaders that are like, "I don't want this chat in the office. I don't want to hear about your bloody burnout." But then the danger of that is you're going to have a young recruiter that's working their socks off, doesn't know their DNA, their playbook, doesn't know whether what they're putting in their body is right or not. And they could be so successful. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're hospitalised. Yeah. And God forbid have to go through what you had to and what I had to. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
2 weeks in hospital on a drip. Yeah.
Right.
And I think for employers listening to this, they need to provide an environment where people can eat high protein, high fat, high fibre on a regular basis, How many canteens do you go into of companies where all there is beige food? It's chips.
It's always chips.
Right? It's chips, it's baguettes, it's croissants, it's
spaghetti bolognese.
It's sugar, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you walked into a canteen and there was salmon and there's really lovely chicken and there's salad and there's
all the
an array of
breakfasts are
vegetables?
always bloody pastries as well.
Right.
And I have pastries and a flat white and I just feel awful for the rest of the
So
day.
where's the eggs? Where's the salmon? Where's the fresh fruit?
Yeah.
Right? And they've all got coffee machines. Yeah? Well, how many employers are making sure that their employees get 20 minutes for lunch where they're not sat in front of their computers, so that body actually registers they're having food, providing good food. And also encouraging, I have so many Bupa reports, so many Nuffield reports sent to me where they've had all the health checks. They've missed 4 key markers. They've flagged up loads of health issues. They've banged the report at these recruiters, and they've come to me and said, Dad, why would this be? I've had to say to them, I need a little bit more information. It's like, look, this is where you are. Young guys who really have got serious health stuff building. That could be sorted out with clever supplementation, lifestyle and diet.
Yeah. So on the supplementation thing, by the way, I normally have never sent my mum an episode of this pod. She's going to get sent this because everything you're talking about, I'm getting so many memories of my mum being like, folic acid and B12. Like, she's going to love this episode, and you would love her, by the way. But she's banged on to me about supplementation, right?
Yes.
And when we were kids, typical ADHD, I got super hyper-focused in learning about what ADHD was, and she was so anti-pharmaceuticals when we were kids. Don't want my children on fucking meth, right?
Yeah.
So we were taking cod liver oil and like we were having like loads of salmon and all the rest of it, right? And
omega-3, clever. You see, mums know.
Yeah.
And
She's
older
smart
generations, you were brought up on real diets. Yes. You were taught never to rely.
All organic, just like,
and
do you know
GPs
what I mean?
would very often go down the route of nutrition first. No disrespect to the NHS or GPs, they get half a day on nutrition.
They don't talk about nutrition. The NHS, if my mum does listen to this, she's going to laugh because they were calling her a bad mother for not putting my brother and I on medication. And she sat there going, I'm putting them on cod liver oil, they're not drinking any fizzy drinks, no E numbers, all the rest of it. And, she did a great job. And it was only until I became an adult and moved from sales where I could have been, I was a bit of a maverick in sales. Like, I was just me and people bought from me. When I moved to L&D, I didn't know L&D, and it's like, right, here's 1,000 documents, read it and create an academy. I was like, shit, I've got to go home and read all these documents, which is not the sexiest part of the job. That's when I was like, fuck, I need to get the extra level. And I used to meditate, I used to do my martial arts, but I needed that extra something. Yeah. And that was the point my mum was like, do you know what, maybe medication would actually be a thing.
Because you weren't getting your dopamine hit.
Exactly, yeah.
And think about the genetic coding that I was talking to you about. You need a dopamine hit. You're going to get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
This is where addictions come in with ADHD. You're going to get it from shopping, you're going to get it from gambling, you're going to get it from sex, you're going to get it from alcohol, you're going to get it from drugs. You're going to get it from somewhere. So you need to have your structure in place to make sure you get the dopamine hit that you need, wherever you're going to get that from. If it's exercise, you don't exercise on an empty stomach. If it's whatever your dopamine hit is, you need to make sure you get it because you need it.
Yeah.
And that's self-care. This isn't about deprivation. So if you're in a job that you're not enjoying, make sure you start your day on a win.
Yes, that's a good point.
Right? Start your day on a win, because when you can't clear dopamine and adrenaline and noradrenaline, what happens when you wake up in the morning? Massive anxiety.
God, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to work with that. So you need to understand yourself, that you're not broken, that it's not a personality flaw, that you need to really catch those thoughts. You need a really good morning routine. How many people can have a good morning routine with a young baby? You need to then build in your self-care practices. The supplementations come in once you know your data. I don't supplement for the sake of supplementing.
That was going to be my question.
Diet. And it's supplementation once you've got the data.
Yeah.
And I test. And I test the supplements on the data. Folic acid is a killer for ADHDers because of the MTHFR gene. Lots of people are taking multivitamins with folic acid in. They can't convert it.
Right. Okay.
It has to be a methylated one. where are your D3 levels? Where are your B12 levels? Where is your acid, your fatty acid profile? You know, your mum really, you know, all children should be on oily fish. You know, fish oils, a diet that really works with every genetic combination. If we were all to eat the Mediterranean diet and have our bloods read and our DNA, we would know exactly how to eat and what to do. Then it's down for us to build that environment that bathes our genetics in it, because then symptoms can be managed. I'm not saying don't go and get the diagnosis for ADHD, but the NHS pathway is 9 minutes with a GP, 18 months on a waiting list, straight to medication. There is so much you could do to work and manage your symptoms alongside the medication, alongside the diagnosis, to get the best out of yourself. But how can you possibly put a plan together when you don't know what you're dealing with?
That's a good point, yeah. Well, because that was going to be my question, but I don't know if it's really relevant now, because I was going to say, in terms of the supplementation, I do turmeric and curcumin, or whatever it's called.
Curcumin.
That's the one, yeah.
For inflammation, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to suppress the inflammation, because inflammation in the body is inflammation in the mind. The problem with taking that combination is inflammation is on a seesaw. If you look at an inflammatory cascade and you look at the actual cells itself, curcumin will tip the balance on IL-1 and IL-17. If IL-17 is high, IL-1's low, so you're working on a seesaw all the time. What you want to do is bring it all down, not tip the seesaw one way or the other, which is where the fish oils very often will come in.
Right, okay. So maybe, yeah, do you recommend swapping out the fish oil for that?
It's hard to know without an omega.
Yeah, fair enough.
But food source curcumin is okay, because you're not dosing at hard level. Well, you just put it in a curry, you just put it in your food.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. That's what my friend
Spices.
said. Yeah.
The minute you start, this is the misnomer about supplementation. You can be supplementing something that is actively damaging you when you don't know.
Yeah.
Because how many of us are adapting ourselves around our own stress, taking ashwagandha, rhodiola, right, curcumin. I have some founders who come to me with bags and bags and bags, hundreds of pounds worth of supplementation that are actually doing them damage, that's full of folic acid, that's full of curcumin, that's full of, when really, if they sorted their diet out, we knew what their levels were, and we got them on the main four, the four biological levers, and put all of that base levels right, would they and they weren't over-exercising to overcompensate for the dopamine levels, if they really knew themselves, if they were really in a connected relationship, if they were really in a job they loved, if they were really eating right, if they were supplementing right, they really knew themselves, would they need to take hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of supplementation?
Probably not.
It's probably 4 or 5 that they need on a regular basis to sustain, because what do ADHD personalities do? They go all in, and then they're all out.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the ones that my mum was like really adamant on was D3, vitamin C, zinc for immune system. So I've been super consistent with that for like 4 years now.
And zinc's a coenzyme to the thyroid. And think about what you're going through with your hair and things. You know, the thyroid regulates everything. Cortisol is massive. If you're going too long without food, and especially not eating in the morning and having coffee, cortisol just rises all the time. Cortisol is a steroid hormone. It's going to steal your testosterone. It's going to steal your estrogen, your progesterone. You add in that, what coffee does, it spikes your blood sugar. Oh, and then insulin. Well, that's 2 places in the hormone cascade. That's your testosterone and your progesterone gone. Testosterone is your rumph, progesterone is the happy hormone. And then we wonder why we've got mental health issues. Then we go another 8 hours without eating. Then we get to the evening. Okay, we've crashed. Now we're having all of these thoughts. We're a bad person, this, that, and the other. Then we're eating sugar to try and hit this dopamine hit. And then we can't sleep. And you see how this goes on. Whereas if you understood yourself and you had somebody to talk you through what was happening to you, that isn't a mental health crisis, it's a biological crisis.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, honestly, for I think people listening to this, that's one of the biggest takeaways, is that, especially younger people, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they were talking about the culture, how it's shifted, and now, especially in America, everyone is in therapy. And they were saying, especially in men, that actually sitting down and just talking about your problems all the time is no longer helping. Is actually making the problem worse. Like I said this on the podcast with, I think it was a guy called Chris, and I did therapy for like 6 sessions. Long story short, didn't speak to my dad for many years. Thought he was going to die. Got back in touch. Mind just like like that. Like, oh my God, I can't deal. Sort out a therapist who specialised in trauma. When I started telling her about all the stuff I've gone through, she was like, no, she was like this, like, oh my God, there is so much to attack here and I'm going to help you. And she was fantastic. But after 6 sessions, I was like, cool, I'm done. Yeah. And they were like, well, no, you should really do 12 sessions. I was like, well, no, you've solved my problem. The last session I had with you, you're going, right, so tell me about when you were 16. I'm done. Yeah, but we need to talk about your problem. No, but they're not problems anymore. Like what? And I remember like the last ever session, she was just like, it's unhealthy for you to not like realise how damaging it was. No, I do. I get it. That was fucked. That was awful what I had to go through. But I'm really grateful for it, because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Absolutely.
And then I think she almost thought I had like a toxic kind of positivity kind of thing. I'm like, no. I needed you to help me with what I'm going through with my dad. You've done that. You've helped me understand, actually, fucking hell, yeah, that was really, really bad. I'm good. If I need you again, I'll come back to you. Yeah. And I haven't had to go back since, right?
Because it's in the actions.
Yeah.
It's in the actions that you take.
Yeah.
And this is where reactive healthcare, people give their health away. They want to be medicated for their symptoms. They want the symptoms to go. Where I come from is you've got symptoms for a reason. If I can give them back control and that safety back in their body, the same as a therapist did for you, she helped you rationalise what was going on, helped you work out a strategy, helped you work out of, I understand why I was feeling like that. She's put safety back. Yeah. Everything I do is put safety back at a biological level. Yeah. Help somebody understand where they are and what they have control over. Yeah. That's the changes. They don't need to be with me for forever. It's 6 months. And if then we know that there's deep trauma on the back of it, then we do the next 6 months of working on the brain capacity, but only once we've stabilised the central nervous system. That comes from deep biological levels. You need to know your data. Put the roof on, then we work with the foundations. Whereas most, whether you're in coaching or reactive healthcare, you put the foundations in. When you're a high performer and you're a recruiter, if you're heading towards burnout, sometimes we just have to put the roof on. We put the roof on, we halt the burnout, then we deal with the foundations, because we're all running businesses, we're all in families, we can't stop. That's why very often catching it early means you don't have to stop, but you do have to make changes, and you do have to be real about where you are, and you do have to look at your data, because data doesn't lie. No, 100%. And if I'm a recruitment business owner listening to that, you're absolutely spot on, because that's, we spoke about this, right? That's like one of the pinnacles of trying to run a desk, run a business, run a team is the data, right? 100%. Show me the data. Let me interpret that data around your DNA. We will come up with a plan, and I will support you until you've nailed it.
100%.
That is how healthcare should be run. That is personalised healthcare. What have we got? What do we need? Where do you want to be? What control have we got over it? What levers do we pull? And how much support do you need?
It's so powerful. So just lastly, on the supplements, because you mentioned that you wouldn't necessarily tell people to take supplements until you know their sort of DNA.
So DNA and bloods.
DNA and bloods then. So because what I don't want to do is, like, there's a lot of podcasts that are like, oh, this is what you should take and supplement. So that I'll just skip
Why would you know? Why would anybody know what supplements to take if they didn't know their own
Is there,
data?
just quickly on that though, is there any supplements that you would say actually, like vitamin C, zinc, D3, etc. Like I've spoken to many people, because I've recruited in medical technology for years, and a lot of people were ex-nurses, ex-doctors, etc. And during the pandemic, so many people were saying to me, like, mate, there's D3, the vitamin C, like that's just great for your immune system.
Immune system and hormones.
Yeah, and the only other thing I didn't mention as well is I bang on my wife all the time about taking creatine, and she struggles to get into the habit of it. I've been taking 3 to 6 milligrams of grams of creatine every day. My workouts have improved, my cognitive ability has improved. My mum was so anti-creatine for so many years, and then I showed her all the data, all the research. It's the most well-researched supplement of all time, right?
Especially for ADHD profiles. If you've got issues with your methylation, you've got issues with your COMT, and you've got issues with your detoxification, it's really important to, take your creatine, because it's not about muscle gain, it's about brain clarity.
People don't get that though. This is what I said
to
my mum.
They don't, because it's not talked about, but creatine monohydrate.
It's the monohydrate, yeah.
That is absolutely pure. You don't need to be taking tablets. You can just take the powder form. But again, unless you know And creatine is measured in blood tests. Because I also have gym bunnies who are burning out, whose creatine levels are through the roof because they're over supplementing on high level creatine, and their GFR, which is kidney health, is being damaged. You have to know where you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and if you can't clear it, we need to scale back. This is about being clever. This is about knowing your data.
Yeah.
When you take your car, if your car shows an engine light is on, would you continue driving it? No. And yet, as recruiters, as founders, we're running on empty. The engine light's been on for so long. We know we're off kilter. We know something's not right. And we do nothing about it. And then we wonder why. We go pop.
Yeah. It happens
It's like,
all the time.
get the data. What's in your DNA? What's in your bloods? What do we do about it? Where's your diet? What support do you need? This isn't long term. This is 6 months to a year's worth of work for a healthy rest of your life. Because once you know it, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
Then you know what to take, why to take it. Then it's like, why not every year have your bloods done? Where are you? Deb, you've got my DNA. Here's my bloods. Let's have a catch up. Where are you with your supplements? Oh, look, that's a bit off. Right, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You do it for your car. You take it in for an MOT. You take it in for a service. You take it in for an oil change.
Yeah, speaking of mechanics, that's my mechanics, my uncle. I'll just put that on
And
silent.
yet,
That's rookie from me.
For us as human beings,
Yeah.
we don't invest.
Honestly, like that's the kind of the journey I've been on, minus the bloods, which is something after this I'm 100% going to be looking to do. And I spoke to my business partner. He's also been on the podcast. He had cancer when he was similar age to me and got over it and all the rest of it. And we were talking the other day about like the biggest stresses in life. And he was saying that financial stress is one of the biggest. And bear in mind, this guy overcame cancer, and he was like, financial stress for me was harder than dealing with cancer. But from his perspective, it was because he had a plan in place, and he was just like, I'm young, like, I'm just going to get through this. But what I think a lot of people don't really understand, and because again, this is where I look at it from a gratitude lens, is because I've seen family members have strokes, cancer, and all those types of diseases. I never take my health for granted. So I've always been quite on it, and it hasn't been until recently where I'm like, no, I need to be like really, really on it. So definitely like
be proactive.
It's just being
rather
proactive
than reactive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time with ADHD is we have this ability to go, that's a big problem. If it's over there and I can't see it, it's not a problem. And I just crack on with my life until it becomes a problem. So quickly then, so if I'm a recruiter or a founder, have ADHD, I'm obviously going to go and get my bloods tested, work on my environment, figure out what foods work for me and things like that. What things are maybe even just for yourself personally or for people that you've worked with in terms of what some people would call strategies? So the guest that was here, the last week's episode, he worked with an ADHD coach, and something that was really, really fascinating was that he struggled to put things on the CRM or do anything digitally. So now in his office at home, he's got multiple whiteboards. So basically from his perspective, it's almost that dopamine hit of going, I have an interview, and then ticking it off in a different color to go, there we go. And that holds him to account. And we spoke about a few other strategies around time blindness and around, losing things. ADHD is very typical. Like, where are my keys? Where are my keys? We talked about strategies around almost being like borderline OCD with it, of like, my keys have to be here, and being
But think
really
about ADHD, think about OCD, think about neurodiversity. It's all on the same spectrum. It's all down to central nervous system. It's all down to which part of the brain you're operating in and how much energy, intrinsic cellular energy, do you have to power the system. Right? You have to work with what you have. You have to work from this part of the brain. And if you're not, you're going to go haywire at some point, and it has to be managed.
Yeah. So is there any strategies that you've utilised yourself to manage your ADHD symptoms, perhaps even from a scientific perspective, or anything that you think someone listening to this that is working in recruitment, running a business, is there any, like, I don't want to call them like quick fixes, but do you know what I mean? Is there anything that you can think of that could potentially help?
So if you want to know whether you need to run your DNA and you need to have your bloods taken, I would do a 14-day trial without gluten, and I would add in a methylated multivitamin and mineral, and tell me you haven't got a completely different brain after 14 days. That would tell me that you have the MTHFR, some sort of COMT issue, and a detoxification issue. If you feel different after that, that should give you the information that somebody like me is worth investing in. Because if you can do that from just taking one food state out and just adding in one methylated folate, because that feeds the MTHFR, that up levels you. Think of what you could achieve if you'd absolutely nailed your diet and done all the other things that I would do with you from a DNA perspective. And then we look at your bloods and we lay that over your DNA, and then we deal with your cellular health. Just imagine what you could achieve in 6 months, a year's time.
So what foods are gluten in? Bread?
It's all bread, it's pasta, and it's not just the gluten. It's because all gluten products, all wheat-based products in the UK are sprayed and fortified with folic acid.
Right, okay.
The MTHFR, which is key to this ADHD picture, means you can't break it down, and very often you can't clear it, and you can't. So when you go to the GP, your folate looks high, and they say, no, your folate levels are fine. They're not fine because it's folate that you can't translate. It's staying in the blood. It's not in your cell. It's not cells because you're not converting it.
Okay.
Because it's the wrong kind of folate.
Yeah.
So we take that out. Your folate bombs. But we're putting in the methylfolate, which is then getting in your cells. All of a sudden, your energy comes back. You're not bottlenecked. Right. You're not building up folic acid in your system that's giving you this fake energy and the crashes all of the time.
Yeah. Because I'm just thinking from a selfish perspective, I don't really eat bread anymore. So I used to have like a breakfast bagel with like eggs, bacon or whatever it is. And I'd always feel a little bit like funky after, right? Yep. I've started having protein pancakes with either just oats, banana, protein powder, maybe a splash of milk and a bit of coconut oil. Yep. Feel fucking amazing after, right?
Yeah. So, no folic acid, because we don't know. There's 100 gluten proteins. I test all of them in the DNA. Lots of my founders have already been to the GP. They've tested one. They've given them a celiac test. They've filled them full of gluten before. Then they've done the celiac test and said, no, you're not celiac. Well, that's not true because the GP only tests one enzyme. I test all 100.
Right, okay.
So I'm looking at actually what is exactly going on.
So when you were saying, so I'm thinking again, if I'm finishing this episode and I'm going, right, what's an actionable thing? So I'm going to just cut out gluten as an experiment to see if I think I have ADHD or I'm actually diagnosed, I'm medicated or not. I'm going to cut gluten out for 2 weeks as an experiment to see if that actually helps. And the second thing, how does someone do that? The second thing?
Add in a methylated folate,
how do they do that?
methylfolate. There's lots of methylated folates on the market. They want a good methylated folate with all the coenzymes in it, the zinc, the selenium, the magnesium, all of the coenzymes that help it get into the cells. Okay. A really good, well-rounded one, and sort out their diet.
Yeah. So that's for me as well, but like that's such a wicked little takeaway, just as a test, right? So cut gluten out for a couple of weeks. Again, if my mum listens to this, she's
totally
gonna be like,
clear.
I told you. So do that for 2 weeks, do the methylated folate and test that for 2 weeks. I mean, I think some people, this is another issue of society, and especially with younger recruiters, they want like instant, and again, that's a very
14
typical.
14 days, 2 weeks.
It's not really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really a long time, is
and
it?
Then you've got a bit more of a picture. You know, when I've done this with families, it's a completely different household. You've got a whole family of neurodiverse. You've got the dad who's burning out. You've got the mum who's anxious as anything. You've got 2 kids who are bouncing off the walls.
Dog that's bouncing off the
walls.
You talk
to them about their biggest stress, and it's like, my biggest stress is that my kids are going to have to go through what I've been through. I say to them all, you as a whole family are going to go, even without the test, you're going to go gluten-free for 2 weeks. We're going to add in a methylated folate, and let's see how everything changes. By which time I've run the DNA, we absolutely know. Even kids as young as 13, 14 are saying, I will never eat gluten again because I never want to go back to how I was. And it isn't necessarily the gluten. It could be the folic acid. Yeah. It could be that their biology needed supporting. And it isn't a one size fits all, but that is a way to start.
It's a good thing to experiment with. Okay, cool. So we've spoken about loads. So overall then, from your perspective, obviously people should go and get their bloods tested, absolutely,
but full bloods.
Yeah.
It's D3. The doctors will not run a D3 screen without a really good reason for why. a folate test, a B12 test, a testosterone, a homocysteine. These are not regular routine blood panels that a GP will run.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a good GP and somebody's written to them asking them for it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to know what to ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm running a team, running a business, or I'm simply just a recruiter working in an office, etc., what would you say are some, easy, actionable things in terms of managing your energy levels throughout the day? So if I'm sat at my desk, or if I've got a team around me, or I'm behind the wheel of the business, so to speak, like what are some things that you would suggest to people or invite people to try to attempt to kind of manage their own energy levels?
Okay, delay your morning coffee.
Okay.
So first thing in the morning, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
Yeah.
So my morning routine consists of a big pint of water in the morning with Celtic sea salts. That is full of trace minerals. Everybody wakes up dehydrated in the morning. Then I will go and get first morning sunlight. That sets my circadian rhythms, and I've usually taken a really good protein shake with me. I walk to the gym. I will go and do 45 minutes of weights. I will come home, and within 45 minutes to 2 hours, I will have refueled with protein. Then I will have my morning coffee, not before. That has allowed all of the cortisol to come down. You have rehydrated, you've had the morning sun, you've recalibrated yourself, you have refueled your muscles. That is going to set you up really nicely for the rest of the day. By the time you're at your desk, if you can eat every 4 to 5 hours and keep hydrated throughout the day, not drink coffee after 12 o'clock, keep your coffee as a treat only, eat protein, fibre, fat at every meal, and take only the supplements you need that are DNA and blood aligned that you know you need. Get your bloods run on a regular basis and understand yourself. Keep an eye at how you feel tells you more about where you are than having somebody tell you where you are. Understand where your energy levels are, where they are really, and reach out for help. If you were failing in your business, you'd reach out to a business coach or a strategist. If you're worried about your health, reach out. Get the data. Have somebody interpret that data for you. Be strategic about it, like you are with your business, because you are your biggest asset. Without health, you don't have a business.
There's a couple of things I'm assuming. Did you see that whole Stephen Bartlett thing that went viral recently about his 3 glasses of wine? Have you seen this? Oh, God, I heard it on... what podcast was it? I heard it on. It was an MMA podcast, and the guy that did it is the first ever British MMA champion, UFC champion. Bit of a meathead, right? But when he was reacting to it, they showed the clip, and it's Stephen Bartlett saying that he was with Chris Williamson. He had 3 glasses of wine. He didn't get drunk, but then his life was ruined for 3 days. He didn't podcast well. His whoop strap told him that his sleep was terrible. He didn't get any REM, and there was a big outcry on social media about over-optimisation and like tracking apps. I track everything on my Fitbit, my workouts, all the rest of it. But I feel like I'm in the very mind. Like my wife no longer wears it because she's so affected by it. So if her sleep score's like, if she gets a sleep score that's 78, she's like, oh, my day's ruined. If I get a sleep score that's a 78, I'm a bit weird. I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. No, I'm going to be good. But also I'm quite in tune with my body to the point where even sometimes it says 89, I'm like, no, it's like, you're ready for a hard workout. I'm definitely not. I've got blisters all over my feet. I'm not ready for a workout, right?
You have to trust how you feel.
But it is very much how you feel. And I think sometimes people over-rely on like their Fitbits and their whoop straps
and
stuff
we know
like that.
alcohol is a poison.
Yeah.
Especially with ADHDers.
100%.
And especially with the genetic profiles I'm talking about. What does alcohol do? It depletes B vitamins. From an ADHD perspective, we're already short. We're already not putting the right things in. To go adding alcohol into that, you know, sleep is a massive issue with ADHDers. Why? Because it's down to the methylation panel, it's down to detoxification, it's down to this clearance of dopamine. You know, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed, especially now I'm in my 30s, that if I have more than 2 or 3 pints, it doesn't ruin my life or anything like that, but you know, yes, I'll eat some trash food and my sleep will be affected, all the rest of it. But I've got a rule with myself now that I'll only drink alcohol when I feel that it's what I would call, as the young people call, a motive, right? So if it's a friend I've not seen in ages, it's an investor that we're about to shake hands, whatever it is, then I'll have a couple of drinks. I went to family barbecue on the weekend. Do you want a beer? I was like, no, I'm loving my life. I'm in the sun. I don't need I'm with my family. I don't need it.
And think about, your ADHD traits
Yeah.
and all of the rest of it. If you're drinking coffee before protein, if you're not hydrating, then you're having alcohol to come down in an evening, especially if it's beer, which is loaded with gluten that's been sprayed by folic acid. A lot of my founders will, do everything that we've done and bounce off and go, now I understand why I will never do that again.
Yeah.
Because they're so clean, and this is why Stephen Bartlett would have, that I've affected him so much, because he's super clean, he's super clear. And then adding that in, of course.
Yeah. Good example. I went to my auntie's house last weekend before. Whenever we go around theirs, we always have KFC or pizza. Obviously, I've been eating super clean for like a month and a half. I had 6 slices of pizza. I was beyond written off the next day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my gut was completely upside down.
Gluten, folic acid.
Oils for days.
Right. It
But do you know what? My mindset around that though, and I think this is important for people to realise, I hadn't seen them in ages, right? Pizza, it's a very sociable thing. It's on the table, all the rest of it. I thought in my head, oh my God, it's going to be thousands of calories. And I'm like, do you know what? Don't do this often. It's not going to, it's one evening and I'm with my loved ones. I've not seen them in ages. My cousin's daughter, who's 6 months younger than mine, we're playing together. I was like, do you know what? If I feel like shit the next day, I'll get over it.
But
It's
once you
one
know
day.
your DNA, if you know you can't process gluten and the folic acid, you take a gluten-free pizza with you. So that you can say, oh, you ask them for a gluten-free pizza, or you eat before you go, because the payoff, especially when you've got young children and a business to run, can be catastrophic.
Again, maybe this is me being a bit of a meathead, but I just thought to myself, like the next day when I woke up, I'm not going to be too graphic, but stomach 4 times that day, terrible, right? In my mind, my wife was looking at me, I'm on the sofa, like that. My mind was like, this is one day, I'll be fine the next day. Lo and behold, the next day I was absolutely fine. I had a day. Granted, if I had a really important shareholder meeting or, I had a big demo with an enterprise client the next day, absolutely. I would not put myself through that right now because that is very silly. It was a bank holiday the next day or whatever it was. It's one day. And that's the thing with the Stephen Bartlett thing, right, is sometimes you can just enjoy yourself and you can take, like my mum was always, oh, Coke Zero's bad. It's got all these bad things. I'm like, Mum, you have to drink so many of them to really badly affect you, right? And again, talking about how you feel and all the rest of it.
It's compounded. It's the compound effect. Know what you're dealing with, know what you're going to get when you bounce off, which everybody does, and also know how you get back. If you're going to go out and drink and have a pizza, it's knowing, having your digestive enzymes, you're not going to break them down.
Yeah.
It's about clearing it. It's about having your B vitamins, it's understanding yourself so that you can compensate, so that you can function.
Yeah.
It's about understanding.
It's about understanding yourself. And I think sometimes, look, like you're not going to feel, if you're going to feel amazing every single day, like fair play. But I know especially a lot of recruiters will listen to this and like they're going to want to have a blowout, once a month. Like I still do not as much now I've got a baby, but like, I just now know that the next day or so, I'm not going to feel great. And to the point we're talking about managing energy levels, before, when I felt the way I did after eating the pizza or going out on the piss or whatever, I would try and be how I was the previous day. Now I'm like, do you know what? No, I have to deal with what I'm currently dealing with. Do you know what I'm trying to say? The last thing I'll say before we wrap up, you spoke about delayed coffee. Michelle Flynn talked to me about this a lot. I've heard a lot of people. Recently, though, Andrew Huberman talked about, I think there was a recent study about spiking your cortisol level first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so cortisol naturally spikes in the morning. It's how you wake up.
Yeah.
So if you want a 3 p.m. crash, keep spiking that cortisol in the morning. So what you want is the cortisol to wake you up in the morning. Then you want to dampen that cortisol down, especially for women going through perimenopause. If you're a trainer first thing in the morning, the cortisol is going to give you the oomph, it's going to give you the drive, but you want to dampen it down a little bit.
Yeah.
If you are going to have a coffee first thing in the morning, you're going to go and train on an empty stomach, you're going to elevate that cortisol level. Then you are going to have a crash.
Yeah.
So if you don't want the crash, be clever about it. Dampen down the cortisol spike, get the protein in, eat 4 to 5 hourly, and then do your fast in an evening overnight, because your insulin levels are much steadier.
Yeah.
And insulin is higher in the morning. It can take the sugars a little bit more in the morning, the natural sugars a little bit more, and it can't take it into the evening. So I always say to my founders, start early, have a big lunch, and stop eating 3 hours before bed. It helps with that cortisol slide. It signifies to the body that we're getting ready for sleep, that things can down-regulate, that the clear-up job can, especially for ADHDers who don't detox particularly well, start the detox earlier in an evening. Start the engine earlier in the morning, work with that cortisol, dampen down that cortisol a little bit, delay your morning coffee, hydrate in the morning, just to give you that longevity towards the afternoon and that sustained energy.
Yeah. If I think back to some of the days where I crashed around 3 p.m, even if I had a good sleep, it was trains being cancelled. You know, you've not eaten breakfast yet. You know, you've rushed out the door to catch the train's been cancelled. You're like, shit, well, buy a coffee quickly. Empty stomach, caffeine, train's delayed, you get on a train, you don't get a seat.
Cortisol, insulin, so then your testosterone's low, your insulin levels are low, and then guess what? Then you're reaching for something really sugary, which fires your insulin. Oh, guess what that does to your testosterone? It's your oomph, it's your drive, you know, progesterone, then it hits your... It's this cascade. So it is about, you know, everybody has to travel. You know, I travelled this morning. I had my protein shake in the gym this morning. I hydrated. I didn't have time to have breakfast before I left. I had my hard-boiled eggs while I'm showering. They're cooking. It's not hard. But I don't leave without food because I'm wheat-free, I'm dairy-free. There isn't a great deal to eat in garages that I could have. I either prep the night before or while I'm showering, my eggs are on the stove.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I would say I'd do that on the stove, but the stove's broken right now, isn't it? Anyways, I know you've got to shoot soon. So last question, as you know, following today's episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
Know your energy. Get really, really real about your energy levels. Track your data. Know your data. Know what you're dealing with. And get your blood interpreted properly. Know where you're at. Know what to do about it and where to go. Because once you really listen to your energy levels, somebody out there is going to be able to put a plan together for you, because you need to know yourself. Going into your 40s and 50s as a recruiter, as a high performer, you need to know your data. Without it, you are stabbing in the dark. You wouldn't run a business without knowing your data. You have a strategy for your business. You need a strategy for your health, because without health, you don't have a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, look, I could honestly speak to you for hours. And like I said, I'm going to send this episode to my mum because I'm sure she'll love it as well. But no, thank you very much. I'll put all your details below. In terms of like people listening to this, if they do want to reach out to you, or what types of people should reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Okay, so I work with CEOs, founders, leaders. I work quite a lot in the recruitment space. I'm on LinkedIn under Debbie Bosworth. I'm on Instagram under Ideal Edge. And the same on Facebook. So LinkedIn is probably the best place for them to connect with me. My website is idealedge.co. We have a YouTube channel, lots of founder videos, lots of resources on there. Nice. So yeah, just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching or listening. Make sure that you are liking, commenting and subscribing / following the show, whatever platform it is that you are watching / listening to this on. Also make sure that you follow me on TikTok so that you don't miss out on some clips. The monthly newsletter gives you a roundup of the episodes that happened in that month with some actionable takeaways for you guys that's going to help you get 1% better in recruitment. I would love for you to comment or message me what your biggest takeaway is from this episode. And if you or someone that you know is interested in coming on the show, as you can see, we have had such a broad variety of people that have come on the show, all in the aim to get you guys 1% better in recruitment. So if you want to help support me with the show, make sure that you're getting people in touch with me, and also just reach out to me as well around the recruitment coaching training piece. That's ultimately how I fund this podcast, right? But loving doing this. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Can't do it without people that watch and listen to this podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.